All right, so welcome to College Athletics. We're going to welcome Mike Nolan, our athletic director extraordinaire, and he's going to talk about the process, and we'll have time for question and answer at the end. Or if you have a burning question that you want to ask in the middle, go ahead and put it in the chat. Thanks.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me, Kelly, Danny. It's good to be here. College athletics. It's an avenue that can provide a great experience if you're serious about it. And there's lots of different ways to do that and avenues to get there. But you have to be flexible in your process. I can kind of recall back when I was a student athlete in high school and I thought for sure I was going to go play D1 basketball or baseball. And those dreams came kind of crashing down when that didn't happen, and I got recruited to play at lower levels. So you have to be flexible in where you want to go, have ambitions to go to, and you need to advocate for yourself as well too. I had dreams of playing for the University of Oregon, but obviously that didn't happen, and I went and did other things. But that didn't deter me from trying to achieve one of my goals, which was play collegiate athletics. Junior college route is a great route. NAIA, Division II or III. They offer great opportunities. There's excellent academics at all of those places as well. And you can find opportunities within that to kind of broaden your experiences. So the first thing to do is just kind of advocate for yourself. Think about where you want to go. What opportunities are out there for you. You have to also be mindful of the fact that not every place that you want to go is going to offer you a scholarship opportunity. So you have to kind of think about that as well. Needs, kind of weighing those all out. And again, what I mean by advocate for yourself is, promote yourself. College coaches really find that intriguing when you have student athletes that are advocating for themselves. You should also communicate with your coaches at IWLs of your intentions, so they can go out and help promote you as well. And the other piece too, and I'll touch upon this a little bit later, is be a multi-sport athlete. Most, if not all, college coaches are going to ask, what other sports did you play? The notion of specialization to get you to play in college is really a misnomer. The stats all prove that, playing multi-sports is not only advantageous for you and your experience within high school, but also is great as a selling point for college coaches as they look to make decisions for recruitment and for getting athletes in the door. We had a student athlete years ago, Ellen Berkeley. She was an outstanding soccer player and an outstanding basketball player and lacrosse. And she went down to Claremont McKenna and she gave up basketball and soccer and became a track and cross country person. So you never know what's going to happen, but the important piece is to advocate for yourself, continue with that drive, and making sure that you complete the steps in the process. Can we go to the next slide, please? We'll start with Division I. If you are, a Division I athlete and that's what you want to do, and that is your goal and your drive and your purpose, you should have started your freshman year. Talk to your counselor about your core classes that you need to take and make sure you're taking the right classes. It's extremely important that you get your core classes done, passed, obviously, and make sure that they're all accounted for. And working with your counselor is an important avenue to do that, right? From there on to your sophomore year, you need to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And there's the link right there. That puts you in the system. If you are a Division I athlete, that puts you in the system to make sure that they know who you are, you're accounted for, and it also helps with the process for yourself and your family to make sure that you're following the right steps. Next slide. By the time you're a junior, if you're a Division I athlete, you're probably being noticed. You may have done the circuit with participating outside of your high school sport. Maybe if you're a soccer player, you're in club soccer, or if you're a basketball player, or if you're doing track and field, maybe doing something outside of your high school sport. But now is the time to really start dialing it in, right? Making sure that you're checking in with your counselor about your in-state core classes, and making sure that you're on track, obviously, to graduate. And one thing that the NCAA this year is doing is they're not using ACT and SAT scores. They're not going to use this for this calendar year and for the next. And talking with Kelly Milford, it's probably a really good idea that they don't use that anymore moving forward. That's not a real true gauge of kind of who you are as a student. And really, quite honestly, it's not a good measurement, right? And then by the end of your junior year, you need to upload your official transcript of where you are as a junior to the NCAA Eligibility Center. And remember, you've already signed up and got that done at grade 10. Move on, next one. And then your senior year, right now it's time to finish your last NCAA core courses. With being able to take 8 classes or however many you get to take now at IW Wells, you should be really close by the time you're a senior, right? Continue to follow where you are in your eligibility center. Complete all the academic and amateurism questions for NCAA Eligibility Center. And then when you're done and you've graduated, make sure that you send your official transcript with proof of graduation to the NCAA Eligibility Center. And at this time, by the time you're a senior and you're getting ready to graduate, hopefully you've made connections. Coaches have made connections with you. They've been able to visit you during recruitment periods or visitation periods. And by the time you're a senior, you're kind of dialed into where you want to go. Now being a Division I student athlete it's a huge expectation, right? You could be under scholarship. You're going to an NCAA Division I school. You're going to be a little fish in a big pond. So you got to prepare yourself for that. It's going to be a different change for you. Moving from a high school to NCAA Division I school is a big step. Not to say that anybody cannot do that if that is your goal and that is your purpose, but you also have to wrap your mind around what the expectations are going to be for you as a student athlete. It'd be absolutely outstanding to participate at that level, but you also got to remember you're a student athlete as well, too, right? So the expectations for you are that, you're able to fulfill your end of the bargain when it comes to your academics as well, too. So not to say that anybody could not make that leap and do that at all, but it's a big step, and you have to be ready to make that commitment, not only with time in the classroom, but time with whatever respective sport you're playing as well, too. Can we go on to the next slide, please? The same thing applies for Division II athletics, right? It's the process is the same for Division II and the same for Division I, right? So if you're thinking about Division I schools, and let's just use Oregon as an example, right? You've got, obviously U of O, you've got Oregon State, you got Portland, and you got Portland State. The one Division II school we have in Oregon is Western Oregon in Monmouth, right? So to give you an idea of what you can, for Oregon schools, those are your Division I, Division II schools, okay? Next one, please. Now, Division III is a little bit different. There's links on here about Division III schools. They offer a same competitive environment, maybe a little more emphasis on academics as well. But the differences between Division I and Division II are a little bit different. You're not going to get scholarship opportunities, but you will receive some kind of need-based financial aid or some kind of merit. You do not have to register for the NCAA Center if you're focused on a Division III school, and some schools set their own admission standards as well too. So you got to make sure you work with your counselor pretty exclusively on this one. So you're making sure you track not only your core classes, but what the expectation for that Division III school might be as well, especially when it comes to academics and athletics. And if you're thinking about a Division III school, for example, in Oregon, you got George Fox, you got Lewis and Clark, you got Linfield, you got Pacific, where I went to out in Forest Grove, and you've got Willamette. So you've got some pretty high-end academic schools when it comes to Division III, but they also offer great opportunities for athletics as well, too. Pacific, like where I went, great wrestling program. They got a really good, strong track and cross country program. I think they brought football back if you're a football player out there interested. But you also need to keep in mind too that not all Division III schools offer the extensive programming that some of our Division I, Division II offer. Some of them may be club sports, and there are club sports Division I, Division II actually as well. We had a student athlete, Maddie Lostra, who was a 3-sport varsity athlete here her entire time at IW Wells. She went to U of O and she played ultimate frisbee as a club sport and actually won a national championship there doing that. Right. So, you know, if your goal is to just continue to play, there's opportunities in the club world as well too. So you can't, again, working with a counselor, coming to the athletic department and asking questions about what opportunities, what programming is available out there is really, really important as you navigate this. Next slide, please. NAIA. NAIA is a little bit different. They have an eligibility center too as well. A little bit smaller in terms of programming at NAIA schools. You don't have to go through the same process, your Division I, Division II. But there are great opportunities at NAIA at that level. Eastern Oregon, OIT down in Klamath Falls. Amazing school, has very strong basketball programs. Southern Oregon, same thing, down at Ashland, where I went to school. Warner Pack here in our area, right? Smaller schools that may or may not have all the programming that you are interested in, but there are great opportunities for you to compete at the collegiate level. Next one, please. Junior college, and this is the route that I went. I was recruited to play basketball, junior college at Lynn Benton Community College. This is the route that I went. And this is an awesome opportunity for some of you that are trying to get your foot in the door for college athletics, and maybe you want to go on past the JUCO. There are lots of places that are 2-year schools that are very, very competitive junior college programs that are kind of gateways to other universities as well. You may go to a JUCO school for a year, and then you might get recruited somewhere else to go play. You know, furthermore, if you are a student athlete that's not wanting to kind of go into the big pond right away, as I say, junior colleges offer a great opportunity. Obviously, your tuition is going to be less, but they still offer great programming, and they still offer very, very competitive junior college sports as well. You know, PCC obviously here in Oregon, Chemeketa, Lane, Lynn Benton, like I said, where I went. You know, there's definitely lots of opportunities. And again, with junior colleges, you know, they're always looking to give student athletes an opportunity to participate. Next slide, please. Scholarships. You know, the big misnomer is that, you know, I'm going to get a scholarship to go play college athletics. It's not there. At the Division I level, you know, roughly, I think 0.9 or 1% of high school student athletes actually get a scholarship. You know, some of your smaller sports like golf and rowing, they're able to offer, you know, full compensation packages. With some of your bigger sports, maybe track, maybe football, you know, to get a full scholarship in some of those sports is very, very difficult. Usually you get a certain amount of money that they only get for that respective sport, and they have to kind of you know, dole that out. That doesn't mean you can't find ways for some places to help with tuition costs. Some universities, some schools will be able to help with merit, with need-based, and find ways to maybe pay for housing and things like that. But getting a college scholarship to play sports is very, very difficult just because of the fact that there's not a lot of money in there. You know, but there are ways to find money for student athletes. You just have to be very, very creative. And again, working with your counselor is a huge one on this one too. Looking for federal Pell Grants. But again, most junior colleges really don't provide scholarships at all, and neither do D3 schools. You can find ways to help, but it won't be full scholarship opportunities. Next slide.
I think that might be the last one.
Okay. All right. Questions?
Surely there's a question out there.
I love questions.
All
Oh,
right.
how was this changed due to COVID? That's a very good question, Jake. And I think Kelly was going to put a link on this a presentation about the changes that universities have experienced during COVID with pass, no pass, obviously with ACT and SAT testing. What about, not GPAs sometimes aren't factored anymore. So there's a Q&A that I think Kelly is going to post to this that answers some of those questions that you might have, Jake. A little unfair to hold this down. Yeah, again, I know, right? You're exactly right, Jake. It is unfortunate, because we haven't had an opportunity to have full seasons. And as a senior, a lot of senior student athletes who were maybe as juniors thinking about going to play somewhere or competing at the next level, it's been a definite burden for them for sure. There's no right answer to your question, to your thought. But what I will say is, again, this is where you need to be an advocate for yourself. We'd had condensed seasons. Unfortunately, I think, Jake, you're a swimmer. We're not having swimming this year, which is terrible. But this is where, again, you have to work with your counselor, work with the athletic department, work with your parents, being an advocate. As a freshman, can you register for the eligibility website, or is it just sophomore? Just a sophomore.
One thing that I was going to add about the recommended courses for eligibility, if you're taking like the standard, physics as a freshman, chemistry as a sophomore, biology as a junior, you're kind of automatically on track meeting those requirements. So still check in with your counselor when we meet during forecasting. Hopefully we can meet in person next year. But don't freak out if you think like you had to have a special class. If you're taking the regular sequence of things, you should be okay. Also, I can talk because there's silence and that's driving me crazy. But the piece about, oh, my dogs are making noises. The piece about not having opportunities, and I can say generally from an admissions background that colleges aren't holding the P grades or the inability to take certain classes. They're not holding it against students when they're applying. So with athletics, it's a little different because you want to have tape of your games and you want to have stuff to share, like the film. But generally speaking, they're not going to harm, they're not going to hold it against you. Yeah, so that's true for really, we tell you to go, in general, go beyond the minimum requirements. So having 3 years of a language, having 4 years of math, not just shooting for the bare minimum requirements is a good point, Jake.
It seems like the biggest change that I had seen with NCAA eligibility was the testing requirement being waived for standardized testing. And there is a document that I'll link when we share the slides that you guys can check out. that's a Q&A, but testing for for this year's class of 2021 is not required. It's also officially not required for you if you're a junior. And it's unknown whether it'll be required in the future, but in general, colleges and universities are on the bandwagon of starting to omit SAT and ACT test scores for admission. So I have to believe that probably NCAA would follow that lead and continue to move in that direction. But I guess we'll see after this coming year. No question is too small, so feel free to unmute and ask your questions.
And again, I want to reiterate something I said earlier, being flexible about where you want to go, if you really are, that's your drive to become a student athlete in college, is really, really important. Limiting your scope can be not beneficial, if you will. So again, if it is your purpose and your goal to participate at the next level, you really kind of have to weigh all of your options about where you want to go. And also too, looking at the academics of where you're going to go to as well. Do they fit your needs?
Question, Do you only get 4 years overall athlete eligibility, or could you play at a junior college, then at another college for 4 more years?
You only get 4 years, and then there's an NCAA Division I rule about graduate transfers. So you could transfer as a graduate somewhere and play that 5th year, but you don't see that happening a lot.
And Jake, the degrees follow suit with that. When you play 2 years at a community college and you transfer to a university, you're only going to be there typically for 2 more years, maybe a third, depending if you have to take some extra requirements that you didn't fit in, but typically it's still a 4-year process.
Elliot, your question, what do you do if you have no idea where to go? I would start making a list of potential places that you have thought about, and making sure that they offer that respective sport for you. Start with a big net, and then kind of whittle it down, right? Thinking about obviously environment where you're at, the needs academically for you, and again, depending what level you're shooting for, making sure that they offer your sport. And researching. I always encourage student athletes to do a lot of research. Look at the program history, look at the coaching staff, right? And then be an advocate for yourself on the tail end of that as well too.
I would say also starting with Kelly and with Winston in the College Center and with me, because I'm your counselor, Elliot. There's adults in the building that can kind of help you get started on figuring out, do you want to go to a big school, a small school? Do you want to be in a small college town? Do you want to be in a big city? That's a good place to start with thinking up, where do you want to live? Because it's not just the college, it's the city, the town, wherever you're living. You're going to be spending a lot of time there. So that's the best place to start, I would say.
And we have a tool at IW Wells that can help you start that research. It's called Maya Learning. If you're a junior, you probably have been introduced to it and maybe have logged in, but you use your PPS Gmail account to do a single sign-on and log in. I'll also put the link to that. It's on our website and it's in our newsletters and it's in lots of places, but I'll add it to this slideshow as a place where you can get in and search. You can do a university search in there, and you can put one of the filters in there are college athletics. So you can search by an athletics program, by, as Danny mentioned, the types of majors you might be looking at, and by the size of the school, how competitive the school is, all kinds of filters that you can do college searching in there and start saving a list to your considering colleges. That's a good place to start. It's called Maya Learning, MAIA Learning. I was also going to ask Mike if you had more to say on how students can be advocates for themselves with people who would come to recruit. What can students do to reach out?
I've always, encouraged students to, if they have film on themselves, to create essentially kind of a snapshot of who you are, right? Using that as your own recruitment tool. I know that, like for myself, when I wanted to play college sports, I went to the local junior colleges and just introduced myself. I went out and just made visits because I knew the college basketball coaches were on staff. And then reaching out to prospective places and just, introducing yourself, right? Again, being an advocate for yourself. You can go to, most junior college websites, and you'll see the information for all colleges. And go to a game, right? Go to a contest. Like Danny was saying, right? It's the environment where you might potentially be living in, which is really, really important. So that's one avenue. And then working with your high school coach as well too. Hopefully they have some connections within the college ranks that can help you make a recruitment tool. And there are firms out there like National Scouting Report. There are actual firms out there that you can connect with, but usually they have a cost associated with them. So you have to be willing to kind of pay for that, but they will they will advocate for you. And I'll tell you this, they will find you places. But they cost money, right? So you can go the route of kind of doing it on your own, or you can find groups that and places out there that actually take you, they'll meet with you, they'll sit down with you, they'll talk about what are your goals and aspirations, and they'll go out and hit the recruiting trail for you and with you.
And then Elliot asked, does all this information apply to colleges out of the country? Which Danny put a reply to, but I wondered if anybody had anything else to say about that.
You're muted, Mike.
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't have the correct answer on that one, because universities, public universities outside the United States operate differently. A lot of them are club, I can tell you that. They don't have Division I, Division II, Division III ranks, any IA junior college stuff. A lot of the universities outside of the United States operate in the club world.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Winston.
Also, a lot of schools, especially if we're not even thinking Canada, like farther out, like Europe, they don't really follow the model we have of collegiate sports. So that's why it's a little bit different in Canada too. Not all schools have collegiate sports. Like I know UBC does, for like football, and some schools do. But for the most part, like the concept of collegiate sports isn't the same. It's more club, like Mike said.
Yeah, even at the high school level too.
Any more questions before we sign off? Does anybody have any questions left? Thank you so much, Mike, for your presentation and your information. Again, we will follow this up with a posting of both the recording and the slideshow, which has the linked resources. And I will add that COVID response page to that resource as well. And everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You.